Hello everyone. Welcome. Good morning, Vic. How are you?
I'm all right. I was trying to get Nick, but she's not quite there yet, is she?
No. We'll wait until she's actually visible. The moment she just looks like a square. Oh, there she is.
She is.
Hello, guys.
You all right?
Very well, thank you. How are we both?
Good. I was very organised this morning and I just got it all set up, ready to go.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine us being able to create. No, me getting live technology to work.
It's good. Thanks so much. I can see a few people are joining us already, so I will keep an eye on the chat bar on my phone. We've got a few topics that we want to explore a little bit. Sorry, I was just having to mute myself on my phone. We said we'd talk a little bit about emotions and behaviour and also school and adaptations in school. But I suppose let's talk a little bit first around mental health, what it is. And that might be different for each of us. But Vic, what is mental health to you? What does it mean?
Mental health for me is about managing life in a way that works for me. Does that make any sense to you at all?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it does.
I've been thinking a lot about this morning, and there's a lot on social media about World Mental Health Day, which is fantastic. But obviously, as we know, mental health is with us day in, day out, every day. So it's fantastic. We're raising awareness, and it's fantastic, I think, that we're using that language a lot more. But as you said, Jen, it means something different to everyone. I'm just checking. Have I frozen? Because you two have frozen for me.
No.
Oh, you're back. That's fine. That's great. Sorry. That would be awful. And I think we can associate mental health, good mental health, with being happy. And I don't know if that's actually right for me. And I can see you nodding away, so I'm wondering if you're feeling the same thing. But I think mental health is about being aware of our emotions, how we can manage those emotions, and how we can sit with those emotions and feel in a safe space.
Yes, I completely relate to that, Vic. You are singing from the hymn sheet. Definitely, as always, in line with our ethos. Very similarly, for me, and we talk about this a lot in our training at Bridge the Gap, myself and Jen, and in sessions, so you'll have heard of probably talk about this a million times, but good mental health is not about being happy. Good mental health is about the ability to sit with a whole range of difficult emotions and move through them, and not necessarily do that in a rigid way, but in a very flexible way that works for you individually. So yeah, very similar in our views, I think. And it's so much more than that as well. There is so much to mental health. I think really, really importantly, now more than ever, hopefully, it's about seeing that mental health is not separate from physical health, and that we're not two separate people that's like neck up and down.
It's just total holistic well-being, isn't it?
Intrinsic, linked, all together.
All of it together.
Yeah. I think, for me, the same, but I think for mental health, for me, I probably viewed it differently throughout my life. And I think I can see the perspectives of people that for them it is still about good mental health equaling being happy all the time and not having these dips in difficult emotions. And I think for a long time, that's how I viewed it until I really specialised, did I fully understand that all of these difficult emotions were meant to be there. So I think it is different for everybody. But right now, for me, it's the two things that you've both identified, not chasing happy, just accepting life as it comes and finding, and this is new for me, by the way, this is literally in the last 5 years, but being mindful of the small moments. Nick has worked very hard with me on this. But being mindful and appreciating those small moments in a day and finding acceptance around things that have come before. But also it's about that physical and mental health, and that exactly like you said, it's holistic. We're holistic people, we are whole people, and that for me has been huge, and that's incredibly important to me. And
I think that, oh sorry Jen,
no, go on.
I think that's you saying you've gone on a journey. I think that's really hard then when we try and relate that to our children as well, because naturally as parents we want to protect them from everything. We don't want them to experience anything difficult, and if they're experiencing something difficult we want to fix it. And I think that fix it mentality is just part of our culture, really. So it's really difficult for us to move on from that, or to try something different, or it can just feel unnatural in some ways. And a lot of it I think is about relearning some of the things that we had in our childhood, some of the things that society teaches us about supporting children, and sitting as comfortably as you can with allowing children to feel everything that they're feeling, and not feeling that need to jump in straight away to fix it and make it better. And if we can model that for our kids as well, then that's going to be really setting them in good stead for as they grow as well, because they're going to learn, I've got this difficult feeling, that's okay, these are some ways that I can manage it, but I don't have to get rid of it straight away.
Yes.
I can sit with it.
That is hard, isn't it? That is so hard.
It kind of overrides the instinct in some ways, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I heard Jen just say that's automatic, that's instinct. I can't remember the exact word you said, Jen, but it absolutely is. When it comes to parenting, that's certainly something I've really had to work on with my two, is not jumping in and stopping it and fixing it, like you say, but actually allowing them to get angry, allowing them to get upset, allowing them to feel that nervous and anxious or whatever it is normal and okay, and how to navigate that and move through it. That takes a lot of strength, I think, to be able to do that.
A lot of internalized messaging that we have all been absorbing from the moment we were born, and our children are absorbing this now as well. So like you said at the beginning, Vic, this World Mental Health Day, and it is important that we put a spotlight on mental health and we talk about it, but it's actually about our interactions every single day. And I was watching a documentary a couple of days ago. I think it's an old one, but it's Leanne Pinnock, and it was on her journey as a Black woman in the music industry. And at one point she was crying, and her mum, with the very best of love and intentions, first reaction was, "Oh, don't cry." And how many times do we use that because, oh my gosh, this person's crying, they're upset, our child is crying and upset, don't cry. And we link that to those internalized messages. That's just one example of something that we have learned from a very young age, is don't cry. And actually for me, crying is the most therapeutic, draining, just healing release that I can have. And sometimes having a good cry is one of the best things I can do for my mental health.
And teaching our young people that, especially our teens, I think, teaching them that it's okay to feel is real navigation of emotion, isn't it? It's okay to not be happy. It doesn't make you defective. It doesn't make you a weird person if you're not happy and if you're not enjoying life. And I think that brings it full circle, really, in terms of what you were both saying, that it is, we feel feelings and that's normal, it's life, and it's about holding that space for our children to be able to feel that in a safe way and not feel judged for it.
And I think, going back to how difficult that can be for parents, adults to, and I use adults widely because I'm thinking about staff in schools and things like that as well, how difficult that can be to input because it's not what we're used to and it doesn't necessarily feel right. I was thinking about that a little bit more this morning, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, so go with me.
I'll take your hand.
Yes, please do, because because the young minds are saying for today, wear yellow to celebrate teen mental health and to raise awareness of teen mental health. And I knew both of you were going to be wearing your yellow based clothes today, and I thought, I haven't got any yellow clothes to wear. I can't join in, and I'm going to look like I'm not supporting it. And I felt, I mean, I did find something with a bit of yellow on, but I was worrying about how I was going to be able to join in with supporting youth mental health. And obviously then got to my point where I was like, it's fine, I'll just put a nod to it. I'm going to have bits on my top. I've got a mug with yellow on, and I will just have a gentle nod that works for me in terms of Youth Mental Health Day. But that then got me thinking about all of the information parents get about what to do to manage emotions, how to do things to do it right, how to support those feelings in the best possible way. And it left me thinking, you just need to do a gentle nod to some of the things that we know help. And I think, because it can feel overwhelming if we're trying to do everything at once, if we're trying to unlearn everything that we've learned as children, if we're trying to unlearn everything society teaches us, and unlearn certain instincts. If we can try some simple, gentle nods, that's enough.
Yeah, that's so important to talk about, because the word you use there about doing it right, even that kind of phrase is something I think that a lot of parents will reach out to us, and understandably, like, how do I get it right? And we're all about sharing information to help parents make informed choices. They do need to be choices. They do need to be relevant to your family, your child, your experiences. You have to go at your pace. But also, it's not a right and wrong situation. I think that's quite, like, and I know you agree with this, Vic, it's like quite unhelpful language in the grand scheme of things. And I always say to parents that, you know, there'll be some things that are really helpful and some things that are really unhelpful. And often we don't know what they are until we've tried them. But I think for me, the biggest, I suppose the biggest helper for me as a parent navigating this mental health pathway as a parent has been reflecting on what has been helpful and unhelpful, not being frightened to reflect, and also being really kind to myself as I go, and accept that I'm never going to respond in the most helpful way all the time, because I have emotions too. And there's so much beauty in those moments that can be actually very bonding, very connecting, very nurturing of emotional literacy development and relationships. I think we need to, I agree, just be a little bit kinder and keep going, keep trying, and keep loving your child. And like you say, these gentle nods that we'll talk about that can make a gentle
nod. We've coined that, Vic. That's a nice phrase to remember, isn't it? It's, I think, just being reflective is everything, isn't it? But knowing that you've got the power of repair as well, and being able to, you know, if you have flipped your lid, if you have shouted at the kids, if you have snapped, you've got the power of repair. You can go back and have that conversation, and within that is so much learning and so much modeling to them of how to sit comfortably with an apology and being sorry for something. That's beautiful, actually. And you know, we all do it. Me and Jen certainly, with kids that are a struggle sometimes, and it is difficult sometimes, we still do it. We still snap at our kids, and we still lose it, and we then have the power of repair, and we can go back and have those conversations. None of us are perfect. We're just not. With everybody in our life, we're gonna fall out. That's part of it, but we can go back and have those conversations, can't we, and hopefully build that bridge again.
And I think that modeling is key, from whether you're talking about a big blowout and a big argument and how you repair after that, to even just saying, oh gosh, I'm feeling really excited today. I'm really looking forward to seeing Auntie Louise, or, you know, whatever it might be. And I can feel my heart beating a bit faster because I'm excited. And just using that language, modeling that language, then makes it a bit easier when we're coming across the trickier emotions, and we're having to deal with some of the really big feelings as well, because we're using that language day in, day out. I'm feeling a bit excited, I'm feeling a bit angry, so I'm going to take a few deep breaths, or I'm going to take a moment out of this conversation so I can calm myself down. All of that stuff, some of the things that you may well be doing instinctively anyway, you're already doing, is laying that really useful groundwork for some of those really complex emotions that we can experience as well. And it's just things that we can include into our day, because let's face it, parenting is full on, especially if we're working as well, or if we've got other things in our lives. And so sometimes it can be hard to think, when am I going to have that time to reflect? When am I going to have time to do the repair? When am I going to have time to do? But it's lots of things. There will be things you're doing already, and simple things that you can just add in a conversation.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Drip feeding.
Drip feeding. We love drip feeding.
Love drip feeding, love modeling, and just not necessarily those great big emotions either, using different emotive language, using more subtle emotions and playing games with it, getting fun with it. My children yesterday, you'll laugh at this, Jen, and Vic probably, they drew, would you believe, on the wall outside. So we have, this is allowed, we have a big wall outside that's just a chalkboard that they just write on with different chalks every now and again. And they listed as many emotions as they could possibly think. This was not prompted by me, would you believe? This was, you know, emotionally literate kids from young and all that. But I was like, oh gosh, you're naming all those big ones, you know, like sad and happy and angry and excited. How many others can you note that are underneath that? They're a little bit more subtle, and actually they did amazingly well. Kids know this stuff, but actually using that and modeling it, like you say, Vic, using those more subtle emotions around the house because they don't really hear it. That's really important, and pulling it out when it's in a context of a story, for instance, that sort of thing.
Context is everything.
Yeah.
If we're to, you know, teaching children about emotions, teach them about the context in which they might experience feelings like that can be really helpful for them. And it not always being about today, like today in this moment, but when you're modeling, providing context to, like you said, like, because I'm going to see Auntie Louise, so I feel, that's really important. And those physiological cues, I call them teaching children how to be emotion detectives. It's almost like these are clues that we have in our body as to how we're feeling. And I think what a lot of parents will want to know that are watching this is, how does that relate to anger, and how does that anger lean into their behavior, and how can I respond in a way that is helpful when perhaps our own emotions are very engaged at that point. I know mine were, when, you know, my children over the years, if there's a big reaction coming from them, my emotions are filling up because I'm feeling out of control. I'm not sure where it's going to go or end up. And so anger and what's underneath that anger, that's important for us all to acknowledge that there is something there, isn't it? Like, that's helpful to be curious around it.
Yeah, I think anger and anxiety, sort of thinking about the work that I've done with families over the years, it's really interesting how I've seen changes, because there used to be a lot of work we were doing around specific learning needs. Then it very much moved into working with autistic children, sort of as the common theme of, you know, I was doing a wide range of things, but the sort of real clusters of themes that we were seeing was learning needs, then working with autistic children. And now a lot of the referrals I get are around anger and anxiety. And it's just interesting to see that journey, I can't think of quite the right word, but that how things
trajectory, really, I suppose.
Yes, I think so. And whether that's we're more aware of emotions and mental health now, whether that's I can't hazard a guess necessarily at the reasons why, but it is something that comes out more and more at the moment. And I would say all of my referrals at present are related to that. That's not to say that those referrals aren't, I'm not working with a neurodiverse population. That's not the situation. It's just those are the things parents are focusing in on at the moment and are concerned about. And I think with anxiety, trying to choose my words really carefully, because I think with anxiety, we can be very worried about anxiety, but we can sometimes feel a bit more comfortable perhaps in what we can do to manage anxiety. Whereas when anger comes out, I think sometimes, like you said, Jen, it can produce different feelings in us. And ultimately, if that anger can be very physical, again, let's be aware there can be a really big link between anger and anxiety, and perhaps some of those angry feelings are related to anxiety. But when those angry feelings come out, it can sometimes be a lot more physical. So how do we sit with those feelings of anger if it's not safe, physically safe and emotionally safe? But I think that's one of the biggest things to think about, is letting us sit with our emotions and letting us feel our emotions and letting us explore our emotions doesn't mean that we don't put boundaries in.
Yes.
So if a child is unsafe, we can still be saying, I see that you're angry and I can see that you need to get that anger out, but it's not okay to hit your sister, or it's not okay to hit the wall. I need to make you safe. Let's find a way to get that anger out. Now,
sorry,
again,
can I cut in just very briefly on that, Vic, that it's not okay to, language that I really like around this, that I think came from Janet Lansbury initially, was...
Sorry, yes, my language you said.
No, is, and I won't let you. And I won't let you hurt your sister.
Yeah.
And I won't let you. And I think that shift sometimes for a child, it's I see that you're completely, but that if it's not a choice they're making almost in that moment, if they're hijacked, it's putting the emphasis back on and it's, you know, you're never going to say this all the time, but I've just found that with my children really helpful in those situations in terms of escalation and de-escalation.
Yeah, it's almost like, I've got this for you. I'm in control. I'm with you. You're not on your own, because that's
Sorry, Vic,
the time you're talking
interrupted
about. It's an incredibly overwhelming feeling, and at the time when they are having an amygdala hijack and they're very, very angry, that's really quite a frightening feeling when we're feeling out of control in our body. So that they're looking for that safety, aren't they? Which is why those reflective responses matter so much.
Well, I think as well, just a really simple phrase of, I'm going to keep you safe.
Yeah.
You know, and because the thing is as well, is if we're inputting lots of language when we're in that very heightened state, that can obviously escalate a situation as well. So sometimes you don't necessarily need a big script or anything like that. You can just say, I need to keep you safe. That's not safe. And then you can reflect on it afterwards when you're calmer. And I think sometimes just having some scripts, I mean, we talk about scripts a lot, don't we, in our sessions together, but having some scripts in your back pocket for those moments of big feelings, heightened emotion is really helpful, because you will be feeling it as well. You know, if it's happening in the supermarket, or if someone is, you know, really sort of damaging some property or whatever it might be, that will really create big feelings for you as well. And I think if there's an opportunity, if you are starting to see some patterns or a lot of regular big emotion, I think if you can sit together with the people who are regular caregivers to your child or your young person in a moment of calm, so not in a situation, and say, what's going to be one of the best ways for us to deal with this? How can we manage this consistently together? So whether that's in a partnership, whether that's in a grandparent-parent relationship, whether that's in a school-parent relationship, and we'll come on to schools in a little while, because I know sometimes that can be challenging, but I also know sometimes those parent-grandparent relationships can be very challenging as well, as there's different expectations of how we manage behaviour. But if you can have those conversations in a calm way, whether it's a collaborative situation or you're saying, this is how we're supporting big feelings at the moment, this is what we're going to do, I think that can be really, really helpful as well.
Yeah,
definitely. It's so hard, isn't it? And I think, like you said around the behaviour, it's not about not putting boundaries in place. Boundaries are so important, but it's putting that safety first, isn't it, still? And I always say that when we're talking about emotion coaching or how to respond to difficult behaviours for us, you know, obviously these behaviours are there for a reason, they're emotion driven, but equally it is about safety comes first. If you've got children in the room and there's chairs throwing around, you know, we have to address the safety element first. And there are ways that we can do that without adding shame onto a child who's already struggling. But safety is your first priority, and then you can go in there and you can still say those soothing statements as you are implementing that boundary. And like you said, that too much language, I think it's called the broken record technique, actually, to just strip that back and just have, you know, I will keep you safe, that you said, Vic. That's a really nice statement to use with the broken record technique, because I can say it regularly, and I'm just gently trying to drip feed this message into this child's brain who's, bless them, completely overwhelmed and hijacked, that I will keep you safe. I will keep you safe. That, even just saying that, the more you say that, whatever situation you're in, I just said that twice then, and I got a visceral reaction from that, as if to say, okay, I will keep myself safe. But it's nice language and easy back pocket toolkit.
Absolutely. And I do think that toolkit, that back pocket, is so important, because it can be so challenging in the heat of the moment, can't it? Really, really tough. And I think if there, like you, going back to reflection, Jen, if there are times when you're able to look back after something has happened and think about, you know, what happened there. And also, I think a key question that I use a lot as well is, who is this a problem for?
Yes, I love it when you use that. I use it so much now.
Because a reaction to anger, if it's safe, that's again a key word, a reaction to anger is normal. So if we're getting angry, who is that a problem for? Is that a problem in the moment? And it's, as I say, it becomes a problem if it's unsafe, and we need to make our children safe. But reactions to anything, who is that a problem for? Is it a problem for grandparents? Is it a problem? I'm sorry, I'm really giving grandparents a bad name, and I don't mean to. I just know sometimes there can be some different parenting styles.
Yeah.
Is it a problem for the school for the class teacher, or is it a problem for the child? And I think if we're really thinking about that, that can help us to sort of clarify what we might want to do in terms of support
And problem solving.
and problem solve.
You're problem solving the right problem.
Exactly. And where is that problem coming from? Is it related to a child not feeling sensorially safe? So are they, that's quite a big term, but I mean, one of my biggest things is that if we're thinking about school, children learn best when they feel emotionally and sensorially safe.
Yeah.
So sensorially, big word, obviously related to the senses. So we are constantly processing all sorts of sensory information, and sometimes that sensory information can be overwhelming or underwhelming for us. And actually, is there something going on with the way that we're processing that sensory information that's making us very sensitive? And we need to think about the sensory environment, do a sensory audit. Is it very loud? Are the lights very bright? Are there some really overwhelming smells? Am I not being able to move when actually I need to move? Because again, I was thinking about that this morning, and I was thinking that as adults, we're sort of regularly told, especially now a lot of our work is desk-based or computer-based, we're regularly told, get up, have a move around, it'll help your concentration, don't stay sat for 8 hours a day, that's bad for you.
Yeah.
What do we get kids to do? If they're getting up and moving around, they're in trouble sometimes in some settings.
Sometimes we're asking them to tolerate the impossible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When you think of a school system, actually, when it comes to them having any autonomy or control, it's very limited. You think of that expectation in the classroom to be able to focus for that long, for that length of time, and sit still and keep your hands and feet to yourself and hold down a piece of paper in your, what do you call it, a tripod grip?
Dynamic tripod grip.
Dynamic tripod grip. All of that is intense air traffic control. You'll have probably heard us talk about this before. That's constant sensorily, I like that word, constant throughout the day. You're regulating your senses, but also that ability to be autonomous and be yourself and have that sense of control.
So what adaptations then? Because this is, I think, in terms of mental health for children, school obviously is a huge part of their world, and they're there for, you know, a good 6 hours a day, and we have, you know, again, I'm trying to be mindful of my language as well. We have a lot of children that we see that perhaps there's a huge disconnect between, so for example, a school said recently, I've never heard of a child not attending school because of anxiety. That this avoidance of school is all about, I don't know what they felt it was about. I tried to just breathe through that statement before thinking about how to respond. That's an example of how not to react, breathe, respond.
Regulate your nervous system.
Yeah.
And respond.
This is a frustration that I feel as a professional, and this is not big. I'm not digging out any individual professional here. This is not what this is about. This is about acknowledging the systems that we're working in, where they come from, the world we're in now, what the difficulties are, not reflecting back to the good old days that never existed, because the good old days have always been spoken about, however far back you go, but how we can be open to conversations and understand that perhaps we've, as a society, put a lot of pressure and expectations on schools to solve a lot of problems that are arising in our children. And actually that expertise and specialist training perhaps isn't there to meet that need, or perhaps emotionally the capacity is not there because of funding and staffing. But what do we do? How do we have these conversations that are perhaps a bit uncomfortable at times, and how do we make adaptations? And what are reasonable adaptations to ask for in school?
There's a lot of questions.
Sorry.
It's okay. I'll try and address them all, and obviously pipe in whenever you feel you want to, ladies. But first things first, and I say this very gently because I know a lot of my families that I'm working with are having real difficulties with school understanding, local authority understanding. So this by all means isn't a sweeping statement, but I do want to say that there is a lot of amazing practice out there. And I do think there is a bit of a change, a positive change in terms of supporting emotion, supporting school-based anxiety, everything like that. I do see positive changes as well. So I am very aware that there are a lot of challenges for families out there, but I am seeing those changes. And there are so many staff that are incredible at the support they provide. So that's sort of the first step. The second step is adaptations that are reasonable in school. Shall I address that?
Yeah.
So I think most schools now have a learning mentor or an ELSA, which is the Emotional Literacy Support Assistant Programme, or they have Thrive, which is another emotional literacy based programme, or they have something in place that they are able to offer for children who are experiencing some difficulties. So that would be the first thing I would find out about. I would have a conversation with, sorry, I'm jumping ahead now. So as a parent, what would I do? I would have a conversation with the class teacher about, these are some things that my child is finding stressful, difficult, anxiety provoking. Have you got any ideas? So have that initial conversation with the teacher. If that isn't helpful or it isn't addressing things, then you can go to the SENCO, the Special Educational Needs Coordinator within school, and having those conversations with them. So they will have an increased knowledge of special educational needs, for want of a better word, and they will have further ideas about what we can be doing in school to support. You can also be calling in other professionals as well. It is a tricky time to get other professionals in, I'm not going to lie. So for educational psychologists, for example, there are very few educational psychologists and there are a lot of children. So it can be quite difficult to get a local authority funded educational psychologist in school, but it's not impossible. So have those conversations. But there may also be other professionals that they work with. So they may have specialist teachers, they may have behaviour support teachers, all sorts of different things that you can get extra help in. And there's lots of standard things that are happening. So lots of schools are using things like zones of regulation, which is a program to help us understand our emotions. And again, creating a toolkit to manage those emotions. I will just say, sorry, just as an aside, so zones of regulation is a fantastic approach to supporting emotion and understanding emotion. It was created by an occupational therapist, and is looking again a lot of the physiological responses we can feel in response to feelings. And there's 4 different zones, and each of the zones, coloured zones, respond to those feelings that we might be feeling and how we can move through those zones. Now, something I see in schools a lot, so the green zone, without doing a big training session about zones of regulation, the green zone can be the zone that we feel the most engaged in for learning, and a lot of practitioners I see will talk about how we've got to get back to the green zone. I can see you're in the red zone, we've got to get back to the green zone. It's not about getting back to the green zone, it's about realizing I'm in the red zone and these are my tools for when I'm in the red zone. So it's
see it used a lot, Vic, in terms of being utilised as a behaviour management tool instead of how it was set out for.
Yeah, I suppose as a parent as well, it's maybe learning as much as you can about interventions like that and knowing how to use it at home, and if it's being used appropriately at school, being aware of that and having a conversation around it if you can. There's lots of schools that will do entry and exit interventions, for want of a better word. So there can be adapted entry times, so we're not necessarily coming in at busy times. There can be morning clubs where it isn't necessarily one-on-one, because obviously there's lots of children to support, but where we do a gentle introduction into the day. We regulate ourselves. We might need to up-regulate, or we might need to down-regulate for the day, so upping the energy or lowering the energy. You can do that throughout the day as well. But emotional support, literacy support groups as well, where we're learning about emotions. Lots of things that can happen throughout the day that are quite bog standard. The challenge is that there can be a lot of children who need this support. So my preference would be that that emotional literacy is taught throughout the day. And some schools do that. Others, it's harder to fit into the school day.
It's coming back, isn't it, to that drip, drip, drip approach, and it not being a downpour of let's learn about all of the emotions in 1 hour of a lesson, but let's drip that through the curriculum and do a little bit every now and again, so that hopefully the whole school is benefiting. And it's similar. We talk about something called brainstem calmers, and we do a lot of teaching about brainstem calmers with schools. And just very briefly, what that is it's a physical, rhythmic, repetitive movements throughout the day for children to regulate their brainstem, help them regulate their emotions. And we can do that as a whole class. That doesn't have to be done to a child or with a child individually, but as a whole class, that's a really lovely adaptation that you can make and embed that can be fun. Let's everybody get up, and we're just going to drum on the table really quickly, just for a minute. So you're just breaking off, coming back to what we were saying about children sitting still for 8 hours a day. You're just breaking off that kind of focus that they're having to do, and changing the energy. Because I love that. Just change the energy in the room for children is powerful. And that's a reasonable, I would say, adaptation that every school can make.
And actually, it doesn't even have to be those big physical things, does it? It can be a repetitive rhythmic activity as well as a movement. So I always talk a lot about sorting, and an example of how you can link this into your learning is just having each individual child has a basket of sorting items on their desk, and it might be Lego pieces, some buttons, feathers, whatever it might be, but then using those as counters in maths, using them as everybody, let's stop, let's just size order our items from smallest to biggest, or just drip feeding these little in. And I think a lot of the barriers around that is that fear of the whole class will become dysregulated because they've got this new thing. But all the evidence tells us that 3 weeks is what it takes for that to sort of pass, for us to get into a place where it is actually just a part of the ethos and the culture of the classroom. I suppose introduce that in a way that still instills boundaries that are comfortable for you, but also having that knowledge that of course there's going to be an element of novelty around something like that initially, but it should dissipate, calm down, and then you will be doing so much for those children that just need that, but you're doing it as a whole class. It's not something you're having to pull a child out for or anything like that.
And actually modelling in that, gosh, you're feeling really excited because this is something new. I feel excited too. And the boundary is da, 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 da. I think that's really important, isn't it? In senior school as well, high school, whatever we want to call it, there are things that can be done with that. It doesn't have to be primary school based. You know, we talk to a lot of young people who take things like blue tacking, for instance. They can do a bit of that rhythmic, repetitive, pull it apart, screw it together. And I think it's having conversations with secondary school about what can be allowed for my child to help with that, to help with that transition, to help with going from one lesson to the next lesson. What is a reasonable adaptation? Can they have a bit of blue tack in their pocket, for instance, which might be something very small, but something that some schools might not be happy with. It's about having that conversation, isn't it? And what is okay.
And there's always a way around concerns. We can always find some solution, I think, that addresses a need in some way. So for example, if sorting counters or if using blue tack is going to be distracting, or because, you know, blue tack, often teachers will say to me, oh, but they'll start throwing it, or they'll do this or do that. 9 times out of 10 they don't, as you say, Jen. You know, it settles after a very quick time. But you can use quieter things. So ribbons are one of my favorite things because they are so tactile. You can ring them around your fingers. So also, if you're then doing a breathing exercise as well, you can do it with your ribbon. But they're quiet and they're tactile, and you can use them to thread things, which again is a focused, regulating, repetitive, rhythmic activity. So some of the children I've worked with have those wide meshed baskets on their tables that they might have some tools in there, some regulating tools in there, but one of them is a ribbon, and they weave it through the basket, but it's quiet. It's a
you can't throw a ribbon.
Can't throw a ribbon.
I
So
love that.
There's always little.
Yeah, sorry, you can put essential oils on the ribbon as well that I love. So if you have got, for me, I'm very sensitive to smell. So I will often put a dab of something on something near my nose. So it might be my sleeve or something, so I can just inhale that, and that helps me to feel safe, a smell that helps me to feel safe. And yeah, there's so many different things that you can do, and that's great. I'd not even heard of that before today, like weaving the ribbon through a wide basket. And we're, you know, 24/7 supporting children, so there's always more ideas. And I think that's the message that I really want to share, is that there is always something to try, and holding on to hope with that is not just important for you as a parent, but for the child to see you holding onto that as well, so that they know that actually there is something else to try. When children see their mums and dads and caregivers kind of think, oh, it's just pointless, they really do pick up on that. Emotional contagion is a real thing, and just reminding yourself that actually there is something else, we will be okay. Because hope is everything. And I know, Nick, you will talk about that coping strategy doesn't work, and that can come from parents and children, but actually what are we using it for? Because you mentioned very early on at the start of this live, Vic, about it's not about trying to stop that emotion from being there, it's helping us to sit with it whilst it is. And if the aim of using a coping strategy is for your child or for you not to feel that emotion, then there isn't really a strategy that is going to do that, because emotions are there. They're more nuanced than that. But actually the tools that we explore can help us to feel less frightened of them being there.
And I think it can feel quite overwhelming to know where to, if we're thinking about regulating tools. Obviously you guys have got so many amazing free resources in terms of the brainstem calmers on your website, but in terms of other regulating tools, it can be quite overwhelming to know where to start, because you're like, oh, okay, do I use some essential oils? Oh, do I use a ribbon? Do I use a squishy toy? Do I use blue? You know, it's where do I start? And we're all completely different, so we're all drawn to different things. So, you know, the age-old thing that some people just can't bear the sound of nails down a blackboard, we all have different sensitivities to things. So try some different things out, see what your child or your teen is drawn to. You know, we talk about breathing techniques a lot. For some teenagers, they're going to laugh you out the door the second you say that. Other teenagers are going to, well, not just teenagers, but I'm using that because that's what one of the families I've been working with recently. Other teenagers will be really drawn to that. But you can get breathing techniques in different ways, whether it's by blowing bubbles, whether it's by having some nice smelling hand cream on your hands and doing a big deep breath. There's all sorts of different things to try. So I would suggest trying some things for you as an adult, seeing what feels comfortable for you and what doesn't, modeling that at home and inviting your child to try.
Yeah.
I like that. And it has to start with us first as well. We have to, what I always like to say to parents when it comes to kind of choosing those coping strategies is do a little bit of an observation about what they are doing in those big and difficult moments naturally anyway, because children will naturally be trying to release that adrenaline from their bodies and naturally be moving in a way that's regulating for them. So some children, for instance, so my little boy, for instance, definitely is a breaker of things. He will, when he's angry, naturally go to tear up, break, smash, whatever. Whereas my daughter's very different. That's more of a kind of soothing, like she likes to rock, make kind of soothing movements, that sort of thing. What you want to do is do more of that, but in a safe way, because that's naturally how their body is regulating emotion. So if you have got a child who's naturally throwing when they're angry and up there, give them some soft toys to throw, or bean bags in a bucket, or whatever that might be, because that's naturally going to regulate and give them that coping strategy.
Ladies, we are at 10:53, believe it or not, and I think we could talk all morning, and I can see all of our brains ticking as each other's talking. So to summarize then, can we each go round? So we said at the beginning, what is mental health? What is the one thing you would like to share with a parent or a child in relation to mental health, or a professional, you pick?
I like that. Okay. I think for me, I would like to share that it's okay to trust your gut as a parent, and if needed, block out all of that white noise from other grandparents or other parenting styles or society, let's be honest, because everybody can come with an opinion. So just trust your gut and focus. They're meant to be your child. You're the one that's helpful.
I think I would say, obviously we've spoken about quite a lot of things today. You will be working potentially with professionals who offer lots of advice. You will be thinking there's lots of things you need to try. Just go with one thing. Take one step. Be kind to yourself, be kind to your family, and give one small, simple step a go, and that will set you on the right path.
Yeah, one small step.
Small step.
Okay, so mine would be for children, parents, and professionals. But let's play more. Let's bring playfulness into our lives in some capacity. And let's not forget the power of that for supporting mental health. And if in doubt, trust your gut, and try one small thing and bring it back to relationship, your connection, and what better way to connect with a child or with any of us through playfulness and being playful. So yeah, I think that's a nice end. We have had people watching throughout, so I hope that's been helpful to you all. Just sending you all, you two beautiful people, but also everybody watching or listening to this, just all the love, and please know that you do matter, you are loved, and you are not alone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick.
Bye guys, love you all. Mwah.
Love you lot.
Bye. Bye.